What's up, everybody? This is going to be episode 37 of an Untold narrative where we feature unknown creatives, artists, photographers, videographers, creatives of any sort, shape, or fashion on the show who maybe haven't broken through, who haven't been made the mass amounts of money or following, but they're on the meteoric rise to achieve greatness. And our guest today is no different than that, who I actually think we've had 6 degrees of separation for probably a little bit of time now, but we recently met through Clubhouse. He goes by Black Dave on all social or most socials, and I just found out your last name is Curry based on what it says on Zoom. So welcome, Dave Curry. How are you? Where are you? What's going on?
Yo, I'm just chilling, man. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, the greatest city in America. I did not make that up. It's like a real thing. They Travel and Leisure magazine, they do like a best cities in the world list, and so we've been number 2 for like over a decade, and we've been like the number 1 city in the world, or the number 1 city in America for like 10 years. There was one year that they might have been last year, the year before, they split it into like big city and small city. So you're like the number 1 small city, and then maybe Denver or something stupid was the number 1 large city. But we didn't lose. It just split into categories, and we probably would have beat them anyway. So I'm in Charleston, just hanging out, living life, watching anime, playing video games. It's Sunday, you know the vibes.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks for taking the time and joining us. Thanks for spitting facts as soon as you get on here. So I appreciate that. I did not know that. I would make an argument for Worcester, Massachusetts as well, but we'll leave it to whatever magazine.
I'll check the list. And see what's popping with Massachusetts.
All right. So like I mentioned, we met on Clubhouse, but through a number of, arts and NFTs and stuff, and we'll get into that. But like, what was like your, I think what is your job? What is your 9 to 5? Like, are you a musician? That's to my understanding, I think what your main source is, but then like, how did you get into that? Like, what was your childhood like? Were you always artistic? Were you always creative? Kind of deep dive into that.
So my current work, I kind of just do whatever. So I moved back in with my family to save a lot of money, or to not to save money, but to spend less money, because bills cost money. And so I'd quit my job to like focus on creative things. So I tell people I'm a multi-hyphenate, multi-disciplinary creative. So like I make music, of course, I produce, I rap, I play bass guitar, I engineer, I'm a photographer, videographer, I do some graphic design, some web design, I DJ, I run sound at a couple of venues, I work randomly at this film equipment warehouse, film equipment, I guess warehouse is the right term, and so I work in the warehouse. So I don't work in film, but I've worked on a couple of sets just doing random things. Normally it's just like wrapping up cable and running wires and stuff like that. So I haven't actually done anything substantial on a film. And I guess if I go back, I would say maybe high school, maybe when I was around 15. I'm 33 right now. I would say that's probably around the time I started doing music things. I started out playing in a punk band with my friends, and it was called Extremist Whitey, and it was like obviously a political punk band, and I played bass. And then from there, I started getting into like hardcore and metalcore and stuff like that, and I started producing. There was this band called Sky Eats Airplane that I was a huge fan of, and it was like this 2-person band, and it was like all programmed on a computer, and then it was a guitarist and a vocalist. So I pretty much copied that whole concept, and I did this band with this kid, Lucas, and we started this band. It was called Robo Reptar, and we like made merch and shit too, and this was like back in like 2006, like way before I even really knew what was going on. It was just us on MySpace, and like I had hit up this kid. I had like done a design contest on MySpace, and all these kids sent me like these robotic reptar designs, and this kid won. I found a company, I printed up the shirts, and what's so crazy is I started a streetwear brand in 2011, and this is like, obviously there's way more story in between that, but the kid who won the contest was the kid who printed my shirts locally. So it's like super random that I like the same guy, like I connected with him like all these years later just from like doing all this other stuff. And then I didn't find out till later, like I was almost in a band with him doing vocals, like all this stuff, like in between. I didn't know he was the same kid. And then randomly found out in like 2012 that he was the same kid, 2011, 2012. But after that, I started making rap beats, of course. I wasn't rapping, but I was still doing the hardcore thing for a while. I joined another band. It was like a new metal, like hardcore rap fusion kind of vibe called EVA. And then I started making rap music. I put out my first like rap stuff maybe 2012, 2013. I remember like Odd Future had gotten a record deal, and I hated Odd Future at the time because I came up skateboarding. So I was skating at the same time I started playing music. And
You're,
hang on,
you're back.
okay, hang on. My phone is ringing. I'm not gonna answer it though. I need to turn off do not disturb on my computer. So I was skating, and I hated Odd Future because I was like a generation older than them. So like, like kids who are younger than you, like you're always like, these fucking idiots, these kids are like rolling grocery carts into stuff and I hate them so much, blah, blah, blah. And so Odd Future got a deal. I posted on Facebook like, oh, Odd Future just got a deal. This is so dumb. I'm going to start a rap group called Blood Tiger Crew. This will destroy you. And that was the name of my first rap project with me and some of my friends. And like we still have like our SoundCloud still up and everything. I'll have to send you the SoundCloud if you haven't seen it. I don't know how.
I'll listen to it for sure.
There's like maybe 4 songs. It was me, my friend Lydell, who goes by Illidell, my friend Sonny, who went by Young Whale God, because he was like a huge Lil B fan. And I mean, he's still a huge Lil B fan. He actually has Lil B tattooed on his thigh. And we like, and then like random other people would just pull up and we would just like freestyle. Like I would just like find beats on SoundCloud and we would just like freestyle on beats, and that was it. And so I did that, and then I put out my first formal project myself, called Owl Eyes Part 2. And there is no Part 1. I wanted to make Part 1 like in the future and then pretend that it like already existed. That was like my whole joke. It was like, oh no.
While you're doing all these music projects, right? Like we jumped from 2006 to 2012 very quickly, by the way.
Oh no,
no, it's okay. But like,
yeah,
are you making money from music? Like, is this your job? Is this your career?
I played shows.
Okay.
But it wasn't a lot of money. What did I do? I worked at a restaurant in that time. I skipped a band. I joined this pop band. So in Robo Reptar, it had to be like 2008, 9. We had gone to record an album, and how old am I? 30? So it was 2009. So we had gone to record an album in the upstate of South Carolina with these dudes. I joined we recorded, we spent a weekend there. At that point, there were like 7 people in the band. It was like 2 guitarists, like a keyboard player. Like I did vocals, I did all the like programming. We had a bass player, a drummer. We had a girl singer who also played keys. And we went to record this album. It was a super like weird experience. I'll have to send it to you. I don't think I ever put the album online because it's like super like it's really poorly mixed. It's not actually that good. And then I ended up joining that band in 2009, and then joining the band of the guys who ran the studio. And it was in the same town as Clemson, the college Clemson.
Okay.
Like super in the country. Like I was like the only Black person I saw for months. And so like I joined that band. We had gone to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, which I don't know if you know where that is, but we gone to Myrtle Beach, and we stayed with the singer's parents, like in a trailer, like on a cornfield, like in the middle of nowhere. And then we played one show. The singer like stole all the money from the show, and then we just like drove to New York. No, we drove to Pennsylvania. We drove to Uniontown, Pennsylvania, stayed there with this guy who's like schizophrenic. He like lived in this other personality of him being some random Russian guy. He was dating this woman who was like an Olympic gymnast. He almost killed her. They like got in a fight. Um, and then like and then we went to upstate New York after that, and we were going to record an album. The guy we were recording with, his wife hated us, told us that during the day we couldn't come out of the basement. They had a daughter, and like they didn't want to like mess any of that up, I guess, so we couldn't come out of the basement during the day. So like during the day I would like flirt with girls on MySpace, and then I would just go see girls like in New York on MySpace. That was like the thing I did. And I was like 20 going on 21, and I had a sidekick. So like it was super easy to hit girls up on MySpace and AIM because I had both of the apps. And I did that. I didn't record anything for the album. And then our van broke, and I ended up calling my grandma, and she like gave us money to get back down. And then so crazy.
Dude, you just took me on a roller coaster of emotions there in your process of trying to record this album. A lot of highs and lows, a lot of youthfulness, maybe a little bit of lack of preparation, but also just exploring, you know, what you have to do musically to kind of build relationships with people, and you know, doing these weird things. Like looking back on it from that many years ago, like what's like a takeaway of yours? Like what did you like learn from all of that?
Well, like I think you really like, you don't, for me, you don't really ever know what the thing is that's going to be the trigger, right? Like if there was like a trigger, quote unquote, like that makes you make it, you know, like that thing. Oh, if it wasn't for this moment, then I wouldn't be who I am now. But like the only way to know is to do it. And so I was just doing stuff, and like I've always been one of those guys who like, if I think something is cool, I'm just going to figure it out. So like when I joined my first band, I ended up playing bass because the other kid already played drums and the other kid already played guitar. So I just had to learn how to play bass, and I could be in the band, right? And that's what I did. I just taught myself how to play bass. And then same thing with the electronic band. I just taught myself how to make beats. Like I had Fruity Loops, FL Studio, and this was like back in like, you know, 2006, 2007. So like I was using Fruity Loops back then. And then with this, it was like, well, you know, these dudes seem cool. It seems like their band's going well. Let me see what that looks like. You know, I thought playing a band was cool, so did that. I think a lot of it is like, I'm fine being spontaneous, but I also think that I'm like a smart dude. So I think that most situations I can get into, I can get out of. And obviously that's a dangerous way to live. but
You're going to learn a ton.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the man who thinks he knows everything knows nothing. So it's like, that's the thing. Like I wasn't going into it like, oh, this isn't gonna work. Oh, I'm not, like, you guys are like weird or whatever. And so yeah, it was just that was like, and that story was like only 1 year of my life. Like it was so wild. And it may have been less than a year. And like on our way back from New York, we ended up staying with this girl in North Carolina, in Raleigh, who's like one of my best friends now. She was like kind of talking to one of the dudes in the band. She's actually married to a different dude from the band now. But yeah, I ended up living with her for like a year with her son. Her husband had recently passed. She's like 8 years older than me or so. And I was gonna like just like try to live life, like, you know, join a band, like go to school, blah blah blah. I didn't. I just kind of hung out, and it was cool. We had a lot of good times. Then I moved back to Charleston, and since then I just started picking up all sorts of other random things.
So you've really always just been doing, because I didn't even ask you what your 30-second elevator pitch at the beginning of yourself was. You kind of deep dove into all of these different
My bad.
No, it's okay, because you immediately covered it. You just started, you went this after this after this after this. You've like touched upon this entire spectrum, which is in theory kind of cultivated and kind of made you to who you are today. And one of the things I was going to jump into later that I made a note of was, I knew, like, as soon as we met, or like we were in a few rooms together week after week on Clubhouse, I was like, I swear I recognize this guy. And then I started doing a little bit of homework, and you were on Tea with GaryVee last April.
Yeah, I was.
And dude, I remember watching that live. I watched every episode live at 9 a.m. while I was drawing for work. And I remember, and it's exactly what you said not 3 minutes ago. Gary's advice to you, if and I looked on your Instagram, and it kind of reignited this, was the more you put yourself out there, the more opportunities you create. You don't know which one of those opportunities or moments in life is going to give you that breakthrough. And that was his advice to you. And I thought that was like, and you said it, you just said it 3 minutes ago. And like, I was like, that's amazing. And like, that's what I mean by 6 degrees of separation. It's like, I saw you a year ago and I just met you like 3 months ago.
Yeah, it's funny that I remember after that episode being so pissed because I was like, Gary didn't tell me anything. I was like, Gary didn't tell me anything I didn't know. Gary told me to make a TikTok account, and I don't want to make a fucking TikTok account. That's literally what I thought. Like after it was over, and I was like, okay, like that's fine. I'll talk to Gary later, like whatever. And so yeah, like obviously, he was like. And I wasn't new to GaryVee. Obviously, to get on Tea with GaryVee, you had to know who he was. But like, I already understood the whole attention thing, and in that moment, I think what I wasn't understanding was that you could do whatever you wanted on TikTok. But I was trying to be like, hey, I'm trying to be authentic to just what I'm up to right now, because like, in all that story that I told you, like we didn't even touch on me being a sneakerhead and me having a streetwear brand and me like doing all this other stuff, because like, you design shoes. So like I'm pissed that I'm wearing this shirt, because I was like, oh, I'll put on like, I was like, oh, I'll put on a shirt and like we could talk about it. Like I have the Warren Lotus Lakers shirt, the
Oh,
one
nice.
of LeBron, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll put on the Warren Lotus. You're like, because like when you're a streetwear guy and you're talking to another sneaker guy, I always say like what you wear is like the first sentence in that conversation. Like if you see me in a pair of like if you see me in the Mama Bears, right? Like I have those in a box somewhere, and you look at them, and if you know what they are, then we've had the first sentence in our convo. If you don't know what they are, then we're about to have our first sentence in the convo.
We've already had eye sex before we've spoken a word.
Exactly. That's the thing about fashion. Like that's the thing. Like if you see a kid in Supreme, he's in the streetwear, because like a kid wearing Supreme means that like I don't have to say like, there are people who are like, oh yeah, I've seen Supreme, it's always sold out. How do you get it? And you're like, oh, Thursdays at 11. Like it's if you're in it, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so like, yeah, we left out so much of that side of me, because once I started really diving into hip hop, I started really diving into the streetwear side that I got into streetwear in like 05, 06. But I wasn't a consumer of streetwear for many years after. And so I think once I started buying clothes, then I started to see things differently, because I didn't start collecting sneakers till 2012. The first pair of shoes I got in my collection was the Shrimp on the Barbie Dunk Lows. So it was a blue box SB back then, and they change their boxes every year, and I've slowed down the last couple of years, since like the last year or so, since quitting my job. But I used to work at Apple, and I was making a fuckload of money, so I'd buy like 2 pairs of shoes a month, like pretty much.
Nice.
And I was just paying rent and working at Apple and making a bunch of music. And so yeah, like I'm a huge SB guy. I've probably got like, not huge because they're obviously much larger cigarettes than me, but I probably got like 40 pairs or so.
Nice.
Just of like SB dunks in specific. Like I've got other shoes, but like, I've got Jordans, I've got, some Adidas shoes, I've got some Asics, some Gel 83s, et cetera, et cetera. But
so talk about, you obviously started in music, but it's an easy transition, especially today in 2021. There's no lines anymore that differentiate art, music, design, footwear, street culture, anything, right? Everything's intermixed together. There's no more glass ceilings, there's no more walls, really. Like, everybody's collaborating with everybody. And to me, it's a really cool time to be alive and in that mix, because there's nothing you can't do, or nothing, a story you can't tell that won't resonate with somebody. So like, was that just part of your exploratory process, like as a person, like getting into different fields and meeting new consumers or people in different ways, and then having them either help you along the way later, years later down the road? Like you mentioned that guy, you know, on MySpace, you know, who's doing your graphics, or and then printing your t-shirt or whatever. Like, isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, and like so like question for you, like when you think about like people who like shape who you are now, like what kinds of people do you think about? Like who do you think about?
people People bring a different perspective. I think that's like, as minimalistically as I can summarize it, like that's why I gravitated to, like, I started like watching your Twitter and the questions you were asking and the things you were posing back to people, and the questions you would ask people. You'd push people to their limits on Clubhouse of like, why are you saying something like that? Like, I remember you questioned this guy. We were like in a culture room or something like that, and you kept asking him over and over, like, what do you define as the culture, or something to that. So I'm probably butchering it, but like,
No, it probably sounds like something I would say.
yeah, you just like kept, because he wasn't being clear, and your perspective was different. And I think I always gravitate towards people who change, who can influence my perspective by bringing a different perspective, because I don't ever want to live in my own bubble. I want to be around people who push and elevate me, but then I could do the same to them, or to somebody they know, or whatever it is. Because I think at the end of the day, we're all people, and regardless of the industry you are, we're all humans, and we need to help one another. And I think that if you surround yourself with a diverse group of people who think much differently than you do and ask different types of questions, then you're going to become a better person.
Yeah, for sure. And like for me, um the types of things that were pushing me in the directions that I was going and that I was thinking about, um I was looking up to people. Like I was looking up to like Childish Gambino back then, maybe like blog era, so like 2011 ish. Like I was talking to my girlfriend about 2011 rap music the other day. So like Can't by Childish Gambino had come out that year. Man on the Moon 2 by Kid Cudi had come out that year, which two of those are like in my top albums.
Huge
Um,
year. Yeah.
yeah, it was a huge year for so much rap music. I Owl Pharaoh by Travis Scott, his first tape had come out the next year. ASAP Rocky's first mixtape had come out that year. That music, that sound, those people, Kanye, of course, like, and for me, it wasn't, I'm old enough to be the guy who should be influenced by college era Kanye, but I'm not at all. I actually don't like that music very much. I didn't love Kanye until he was pushing the boundaries in a really, really big way. And so I'm constantly thinking about how I can push boundaries. Like I think I'm asking people questions because I want to be asked those questions. You know what I'm saying? Like people come on stage on Clubhouse sometimes, especially in these NFT rooms, and they'll say, "Hey, I want to do whatever as an NFT," and I'm like, "That doesn't really sound like it needs to be. Why do you want to make it an NFT?" And they're like, "Well, I mean, that's the space, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, but is it like why? Like, what is the point?" And so, I'm constantly trying to think about that with stuff that I do, because even with my mixtape at the time, before there was SoundCloud rap, there were SoundCloud producers, and there was no SoundCloud rap. It was just the kids making the beats, and the beats were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just taking the beats and rapping. So it was like I was early on the SoundCloud rapper sound. Um, I never made it to SoundCloud rapper status, of course, but like that was the thing. Like just thinking about how you can continuously push the boundaries and walk on the edge of what is, especially creatively. I think that's super important and super cool. And so like that was what was motivating me constantly. Like I would even now, like ASAP Rocky hasn't to me made good music since his first tape, but like I'm a huge fan of like Jaden Smith. Like I'm like, oh, Jaden's like pushing sound. I think when he first came out, he wasn't, but at the time, like now, I'm like, oh, okay, you're really like challenging things. And like, I didn't like Odd Future at first, but Odd Future now, especially Tyler, I'm like, oh, you're challenging things. Like, I love to see stuff that challenges stuff. And so yeah, I think that would answer the
Yeah,
question.
no, it did. I think that's exactly, and every conversation when you enter and you speak, it's like that's what you do, and it's because I think you want to get to the root cause. You want to ask the whys. You want to
There's
understand.
So on the why topic, I was watching Illmind on Twitch. I think he was still on YouTube at the time too, but there's this video he showed because he does this thing on Monday. I don't know if he does it anymore, but on Mondays he would do like this Motivation Monday thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this video of a guy, and he would call it your 7 whys, and you would have to ask yourself why you're doing something 7 times. So you'd be like, oh, I want to make clothes, and he'd be like, why? And you'd be like, oh, because I want to look good. And he'd be like, why do you want to look good? Because I want to impress girls. Why do you want to impress girls? Because I need a wife. Why do you need a wife? Because that's the normal family thing. Why do you think that's a normally family thing? And then you keep going, right? And
Until you
then
get to it.
until you get to like the root of what it is, and I thought that was so crazy. So like people would be like, I'm starting a streetwear brand because I love my mom. I'm starting, I want to be this because I didn't have a dad. I want to be this because my best friends inspired me so much as a kid. I want to be this because of that. And what happened is, it's like, if you can dig into that, that's so insane. Sorry that I interrupted you just to like tell that why story. I got to find it, but it's like, I think it's 7 whys. You ask yourself why 7 times. I got to find a YouTube video and send it to
No,
you.
I think that's perfect. I think that's great context, and for anyone who hasn't explored that, definitely do that. And because I think otherwise the story's only like half pregnant, right? It's like you're doing things for, you might internally understand why you're doing something, but to everybody else it doesn't look fully thought out. And especially in these rooms on Clubhouse, right? You have so many opinions, so many, like, the people are given an opportunity to share, but they don't always understand why they're sharing it or if it's the right time or purpose to it. So I guess my next question is like, how did you get into the NFT space, right? Like, you're a huge part of the NFT tips room specifically. And for those who are on Clubhouse, if you at any point in time you want NFT tips on any subject matter, that room is hosted daily, and you can gain a lot of
Yeah,
context there. But like, how did
it's a
you get
website
involved?
for non-Clubhouse people as well. So you can actually go to nfts.tips, like
Oh,
in your
okay.
web browser, and it's a website too.
Oh, well, there you go. Plug, plug, plug. Check out the website or on Clubhouse. How did you get into this space?
So I was around before tips. I was I got on Clubhouse in November, like right after Thanksgiving,
Okay.
and I came into it from a music angle. Like I was like, oh, I make beats. My beats are hard. I rap. I make what I consider a few steps left of center music. And and um, and so I was getting onto it for that. And then I had a friend who had told me about NFTs earlier in 2020, and he was like buying and selling on Nifty Gateway at that time. So like, a year and a half before now, which is like May
Early.
2021. Yeah. And so he was making really good money doing that. And he told me about it, and he was like, oh, you can do it. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And then that was kind of it. And like, I would say in December, I had learned how to make my own NFT, and I had made my first NFT. Shouts out to like Amir. If you know Amir, who does the Mint Fund. He's in the NFT space. He does like a fund that helps people mint their
Nice.
first NFTs. He's super, like, he gives so much back. And he was doing this Clubhouse course, like 5-day course on how to mint your first NFT. And then he would
Cool.
talk about like marketing and all this other stuff. And so on the first day of the class, you're not supposed to mint your NFT until like day 3, but I minted on the first day. and then that's how I learned. That's how I got started. And then from there, I just like, because I was early in those conversations, I was learning a lot from people who knew a lot, like way before it was cool. And then as people were learning about it, I would just try to help people out. Like, okay, cool. Like, I can answer this question, Amir. Don't worry about it. Oh, I can handle this one, Lady Phoenix. And then I was able to, like, also as I was learning, start to think about like how to challenge it, right? Because that's my thing, is like challenging the space. And so then I started asking questions. I started posing questions. I started having my own thoughts about how I think things would work best, stuff like that. So I ended up randomly in NFTs tips, and I just was helping people out, and then they were just like, hey, do you want to be a mod in the group? And I was like, yeah. And so it just became a much bigger beast than I had anticipated or expected. And so that's how a lot of people know me, of course, from teaching people about NFTs there. And I spent.
What do you think? Because obviously you've had a very big impact on a lot of people who have either created their first NFT or who just wanted to learn about the space and apply it to what they do on a day-to-day basis. Maybe they're able to influence their employer, maybe they're not, whatever the case is. Where do you see the space going? Like, because even I looked at the Clubhouse analytics, and like in February when it really like exploded with users, it was like 9 point something million people or something like that, and now it's like in April it's down to like 2 or 3 million or something like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is I think a decent number of thousands, if not tens of thousands, is around the NFT space. So where do you see the space going and how it relates to like audio platforms or Twitter or Twitch or Discord or whatever it is?
So like um NFTs, like the way that we think about it right now, we tie it to art and we tie it to all these things, but like NFTs are just tokens that represent different things. So I'm thinking about NFTs in the future as like concert tickets, which, um I'd helped out Citizen Cope with like sort of helping and get that idea sort of formulated. He had his concert of his NFT that he sold. That was it was 4 VIP tickets to his show, front row. The show was last night in New York City.
No shit. Like
And
in person?
yeah, in person. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And so, and then like the guy who bought it, like, it was, he bought it for like 6 ETH, 6.789 ETH. And so at the time it was like $10,000, which is kind of insane. It's like one of the highest selling tickets of all time, actually.
Well, I was
And
gonna say, couldn't you get a front row ticket for way less in?
but the show was already sold out. It was the last
Oh,
ticket.
okay.
Yeah, the show is sold out. Like Cope's selling out like Red Rocks and stuff. Like he's already selling out like thousands of people.
I know, but to me, the only song that comes to mind is the "Let the Drummer Kick" song, right?
Yeah, exactly. But he's been performing in Charleston since I can remember. Like he's
Okay.
been in the music industry for like 20 years, like no bullshit. And yeah, so it was like he sold the last ticket of a sold out show, and it was the front row.
Wow.
Um, and it came with like a it was a mastered version, but like an early version of a song. That's not even out yet, and it was gonna come out on his next album. It was like this whole thing. And so tickets, huge, receipts, huge, verification of things happening, huge. Art is like the entry point. Yeah, we're gonna care about art as much as we care about art in our houses. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously we care about it, but there's a lot more shit that we like also care about a lot more. There's gonna be like, let's like if we think about sneakers, right? And we think about how like you send your shit off to StockX and they verify it and then they send it to the next person, right? Like that's gonna be like, yo, send me your token from Foot Locker. You know what I'm saying? Like transfer me your token from Foot Locker, send me the shoes. When we get the shoes, we'll send it to them to make sure that's the right shoe with the token. Because then like I can't BS them a second time if I'm BSing them the first time because I sent the token. And then, it's gonna get to the point too sometimes where you're like, holy shit, you have the Dornbeckers, like what did they do for the token, and then you're going to be like pulling out the token of whatever Dornbecker you have, it's going to be like to that point where like it's not about art, it's about unique ownership, of specific things, especially rare stuff like the Dornbeckers, for instance. Like
And I really, you mentioned Citizen Cope did this, and I like the people who are adding different tiers of value to the token, right? So it always has, it's this and this and this and this, and it builds this full story, right? So
exactly.
I spent a lot of money, and I'm taking a shot because GaryVee's added a lot of value to my life over the past 3 years. And so I bought one of his admission tokens to VCon.
Let's go.
At 0.6 ETH, which was when it was like one was valued at 42 and it like peaked. So it was bad time to purchase it. But I did it just trusting that if I go the first year, I could always resell it after the first year if it's super dope, and I'd make my money back, if not 2x, 3x, or whatever it becomes then. So to me, it was like always this built value versus just the digital asset. It's these people who are building these stories and these foundations in this community who are doing it. And I think that's the future, similar to what you're talking about, of art is just the infancy of it.
And that's the thing about like being a creative, right? Like if we think about you in sneaker design, right? You have to play it for a long time. You know, you have to send your 5 bad designs to Nike and they have to write you your letter back that's like, yo man, what the fuck, you know? Before you get the job at Nike, you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of the thing, right? Like um there's so many guys in sneaker design and footwear design, I should say, not just sneakers, and footwear design, whose stories start with oh, I used to send designs over to Nike in Portland, you know, like, and they're like, oh, and Nike would send me letters back that would be like, thank you, but no. And so many guys' stories start like that. And I think you gotta really like build that up and play in a really long way. Like, so with Gary creating that like 3-year experience on top of like, you know, you just got the admission token, and there was like the access to Gary tokens, there were the gift tokens and like all the shit. And like he's playing the long game because he already understands that NFTs are going to represent access, and are going to represent like verification of ownership and stuff like that. So he's like, cool, this is already a ticket. This is already like a verification that you have access to me. This is a verification that you have access to the conference. Like, you know, you have access to me on FaceTime, or you have access to a, you know, Google Hangout or Zoom call or breakfast or lunch or dinner or whatever he just, you know, whatever you got. And it's long, right? Like now he can use this time in between to strengthen that community and increase the value of that NFT. And that's so important. Like that's what I'm trying to be like, okay, I made a song, but you know, it costs a bit of money to get, but I want to make sure that like when I drop my next song, I'm giving that song to everybody who already got it. You know what I'm saying? Because they rocked with me. And you know, as I make more things in the future, I want to make sure that I'm providing these continued like value adds to people who are supporting me. And that's what Gary's been doing, because you know, I used to be huge into Gary. I would watch Daily V. So like if you've been watching for a few years, you know he switched from Daily V to Weekly V. When he switched to Weekly, I was off it. I was like, I can't watch 40 minutes. Like, and so I think he sees it right in the long term sense. And I think that if you're getting into anything and this is what you want to do, you got to like obviously not, and I don't plan, like I'm not saying plan ahead, but I'm definitely saying like think about what something's going to be in a few years and make sure that what you're doing makes sense in a few years as well.
So to that point, exactly, right? I asked this question to a lot of the guests that come on here. Like, do you think about it? I think I know the answer based on a lot of your stories so far, but like, do you think that far ahead? Do you have like a 2, 3, 5-year plan? Like, do you kind of focus at a quarter mile of a time? Like, hey, this is the next project I want to do. I want to help people. I want to grant access. I want to build my community. I want to do these things. Or do you have like major goals? Like, do you want to become a recording artist or a producer or engineer or whatever it is? Like, what are your goals for the future?
So I have one like guiding light, I guess.
Okay.
But other than that, like every thought does it point to that, and I don't think much further than that. Like, so it's like
What's the guiding light? You got to share that.
so the simple version, I always tell people like I want to be like if Virgil Abloh watched anime and was a rapper, you know, because like he can do anything he wants creatively, and it's stamped. It's cool. It's good to go. It's great design. It's this. It's high. It's low. It's street. It's Nike. It's selling out. It's whatever. It's creative direction. It's photography. It's in a museum. It's on Hypebeast. It's on fucking, you know, Vogue. It's on Forbes, right? And so my goal is actually in influence, and my goal is in taste. Like I'm trying to be someone who like when I make something, it moves the needle. When I do something, it moves the needle. I'm someone to watch. I'm someone to think about, because I think I have good taste. I think I have good ideas. I think all those things. I think I'm a good rapper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, like my goal is to be like that. I want to make stuff, and no matter what I make, I want it to be like on story, on brand, but then I want it to be something that other people can look up to, because, you know, regardless of how like you personally or any person personally feels about Virgil and everything he's done, you can't deny that he's inspired hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kids.
1,000.
And that's what I want to be. I want to continue that story. I want to be like Pharrell was for a lot of people, like Kid Cudi, because like, you know, being black and coming from like non-stereotypical spaces, like skateboarding at the time. I know a lot of black kids skate now, like skateboarding, rock music, pop music, hardcore, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I want kids to know that they can be who they are to the max and still succeed. And so that's my overarching goal. And I'm influenced by anime, rap music, streetwear, sneakers, right? And so I'm creating at that intersection constantly. And so that's how I think. But I don't think more than like, a week ahead, a week or two ahead. I've been trying to think like a month or so ahead recently. Um, but yeah, I'm just like, cool, is this anime? Is this streetwear? Is this cool? Like, if someone discovers this in a few years, do I look dumb? You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I think that all of these projects that I'm doing now are like my Pyrex, and then I'll have my off-white moment sometime later, or maybe this is my off-white and I don't realize that something else I already did was my Pyrex. And so an off-white streetwear, not off-white high fashion. Um like off-white, like Caravaggio on fucking every tee with the tape on it and the stripes across it, you know what I'm saying? Like before the quotes, like all that shit. And so I'm trying to just make sure that I'm constantly pushing towards that. And with that, I don't think, I used to not think more than the day I was on. Like, I'd be like, all right, what am I going to do today? And I would just make it through the day, especially once I had left my job. Um, and I think I should have started planning way further ahead once I had left my job.
So
But
I did mean to ask you earlier when you mentioned that, right? Like it sounds like you said you worked for Apple, you're making money, like you were doing things like what exactly was like your job at Apple, and like what triggered the decision to leave? Because I think that'll bring some value to people of like pursuing your passions and your creativity and not being associated to a brand.
so I worked at Apple. I was doing tech support from home. It was at-home tech support.
Okay.
They were paying. So I live in South Carolina. Minimum wage is $7.25. We have the federal
Damn.
minimum wage here. Super low. Yeah, the federal minimum wage is like trash. But I was
Sheesh.
making like 16, 17 bucks an hour.
Okay.
And my apartment didn't cost much. Like I said, I was buying sneakers. I was doing all this stuff. And I might have been like 2.5 years in. And I was like, man, this is an amazing job. I'm never, ever, ever going to get a job that's as good as this job in my life. And
That's a scary thought.
yeah, but like it's a thing, right? Like I'm 26, 27. Um, I had just gotten like a 2-year degree in marketing. Like I didn't want to be a salesperson, which is like your first marketing job, right? And and so I'm at Apple, and I'm like, man, I'm not pumped to be here. Like I'm calling out sometimes. I'm like pretending my internet doesn't work sometimes. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's back. Like I just I just couldn't take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and Apple's really good about like giving you mental health breaks and stuff like that. Like if you really need it, they'll be like, cool, man. Like, the insurance covers so and so like therapy visits. Like you can get some medicine. You can whatever, whatever. I had a friend who went through like a depressive spell, and I mean, it's depression, it's not really a spell, but he had like a stronger upheaval for a period, and they had given him weeks off, and they're like, cool, just take your time, we'll pay you. I think they were paying him like half his pay or something like
That's
that,
awesome to hear.
while he recovered. It was Apple's amazing, like best, like I cannot BS you, one of the best companies you could work for in terms of benefits. And so I was just like, dude, I'm not pumped to be here. I had just started like this blog called Charleston Hype, which was like I was copying Hypebeast, of course, but I was writing about it from a Charleston perspective.
From a local perspective, yeah.
Yeah, and I was doing that, and I was super pumped to do that. I was DJing shows. I'd started designing clothes. I had my first clothing brand called The Comeback back then. And yeah, I was super pumped, and I just really wanted to lean into it, and I wanted to lean into doing something creative. So I quit Apple, and I told my boss, I was like, if you ever see my application again, that means I failed, and please hire me back. and and so what happened was I quit Apple. I freelanced for about 2 years. I had a bad month. I called my family and I was like, yo, I need like $300. And they were like, you got to get a job. So then I ended up getting another job. I worked at Marshall's. I was the manager in the stock room for like 2.5 years. And then I quit again. But this time my family is supporting me through it. So I haven't been in as much of a mad dash. And then like, 6 months into me quitting my job, a pandemic hits too. But for me, I know what my goals are. I know what happiness looks like for me. So that's what I'm chasing. Like, I know the whole Virgil thing. I know I need to think of a better example. But like, um, having that and knowing what I think I should be doing to get there, running a stockroom at Marshall's isn't the path. And so
Yeah.
I've been trying to chase that. And so for me, it's like, I remember my sister and I do this thing. It's like, is success happiness or is happiness success? And that was my thing. Like, for some people, being successful makes them happy, but for me, being happy makes me successful. So yeah.
Yeah, I would 1000% agree with that mindset, because I know that like a lot of people, look at my resume and what I've been able to accomplish in 29 years, and they think that, like, quote unquote successful, but like it's not always rainbows and butterflies. It's way bigger of a challenge every single day. It's lonely. It's, you constantly are grinding, doing multiple things. You mentioned, 15 things that you do, and like how do you juggle those on a day-to-day basis to find happiness, right? So it is a challenge.
Yeah, and that's like the thing is like, if I use the Virgil example, right? Like, he designs furniture. Remember Flat White that he was doing for a long time, which is him as a DJ. And then he was directing music videos. He was doing Off White. He was phasing out of Pyrex. Now he's at Louis Vuitton. He was still creative directing for Donda. He was like doing all this stuff, and so for me, it's the same energy. Like, I'm like, hey, this isn't about one skill. This is about my mind and like my taste level. And when I see something, I know it's good. And so that, like, I think I never thought about doing too many things. Like, I always thought about like, what is cool. I just want to make things that are cool. And if I, in terms of my photography, I was like a big like Terry Richardson guy. I
Hmm.
was big into like Van Styles, and stuff like that. So it was like cool. Like, I got on that like whole like hot girls in streetwear wave.
And if you go to your website, you do have like some very nice photos, I'll say.
Thank you. but
Yeah.
that was the energy, and this was 2012. When I started shooting, way before the Instagram girl wave
Totally,
happened, right?
totally.
And I just thought it was cool. Like, and I still believe, and I still think it's super cool. Obviously, a lot of people don't, but um,
Isn't it awesome that like today, right, 2020, 2021, that like being part of the slash generation, meaning that you do this slash this slash this slash this, is a norm, and it's not honed into one skill set. It's not honed into perfecting one craft. It's taking your ideas and doing anything that you think is a good idea and putting it out there.
it's a game changer. Like, when I started photography, uh, I was quote unquote good at it, right? And so people would be like, yo, you should just stop doing everything you're doing and be a photographer. And I'm like, no, that's dumb. That doesn't even make sense. And like, no, it makes sense. Like, you'd be a really successful photographer. I'm like, no, this doesn't make sense. And I did that for years, and they were like, oh, you're like a good DJ. You should focus on DJing. Oh, you're good at, you should just focus on web design. You should just focus on, being a producer. You should. And I'm like, no, and it was like before the whole slash generation concept was a thing, right? Which is a game changer for so many of us. But before that, everyone wanted me to be one thing. And I was like, I didn't know the vision. I didn't know that the Virgil vision was what I wanted. I just knew that what I was doing wasn't just one thing, and I didn't want to be defined by one thing. And so, yeah, I'm super pumped about that whole thing. And I think that's normal for all of us, right? I'm sure you do a ton of things now that you probably like, you were like, oh, I just want to make shoes. And then you realize you're like, oh no, I could do a lot of things, and it would influence the sneaker design.
That's the best part, right? That's the part that people don't understand, is when you put energy into so many different concepts, it all of them rise, right? So I do paintings on the side, right? I'll do a commission, I'll do this. It influences the physical, tangible footwear design side of things. Or I'll host a podcast. I'll talk to other creatives, which influence my day job. I will go on trips, and then I'll meet people, and then I'll do that. Like, everything influences one another, and it to me, it keeps me ahead of everybody else. That's the way I look at it, right? It's I will never become complacent, and I won't ever become Blockbuster or Toys R Us, because I'm constantly seeking somewhere else to push myself and my limits.
Uh, Something I say a lot in NFT rooms, because a lot of NFT artists don't come from art and they don't come from fashion. They don't come from like the idea of high, you know? I always say that taste comes from exposure. And so like in order to have good taste, you have to be exposed to a lot of things. And so yeah, like being able to do lots of things makes it so that your taste is higher, because you're constantly exposing yourself to new skills and new processes and stuff like that. Like what do they say, like the best manager can do everyone's job kind of thing. And so that's how I try to think about it, is like I'm increasing my taste by knowing how to do more. Because if I look at if I design a shirt, I can think about the lookbook and I can know what's actually possible and what's BS. You know, I can think about like producing a song and thinking about how it's going to play in a live setting, or how it's going to play if the DJ plays it, or how like whatever, you know. And so like when I'm producing a song, and there are rappers now who like love having bands but don't realize that their music isn't band friendly, you know. Like if I have a lot of 808s, how you know, like I'm supposed to just play that with a bass guitar? That doesn't make sense. And so just being aware of those sorts of things comes from exposure.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Before I get to my last question for you, because we're coming up on an hour, believe it or not, this is awesome. Where can people find you on socials? What do you like the most? What do you use the most? What do you think is the most inspirational or influential for people to follow you on?
So right now I'm heavy on Twitter. I'm Black Dave on Twitter. I love Instagram. I've been using it a bit less, but I think I'm gonna try to get back into using it a lot more. And I'm Black Dave on there. And then my website's actually blackdave.com, which I think is, you know, so there's another Black Dave who exists. He's also a skateboarder, also a rapper. He lives in New York. He skates for New York. He's like much more popular than I am, and so
No
I'm
shit.
yeah. And so what I'm doing is I'm hoping to like out fame him into like changing, or people. I've been in rooms sometimes and people are like, yo, are you Black Dave from New York? I was in a room with Lamar Supreme from Mishka,
No
and
shit.
and he was like, yo, are you Black Dave from New York? I was like, no. Like, well, I was like, but I've been Black Dave for like 25 years. Like, so what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't change this now because some fucking kid from New York decided he wanted to be Black Dave too.
So
Like,
you're Black Dave, Black Dave.
yeah, because I'm Black Dave on Twitter, because like Twitter was for nerds and I'm a nerd. But then Instagram was for skateboarders first. And so he got Black Dave on Instagram. And we
Gotcha.
used to like go back and forth on social media. Like I'd be like, yo, give me your fucking username on Instagram. He'd be like, no, fuck you. Like, and but I say all that to say I'm Black Dave on Instagram, blackdave.com, and Black Dave on Twitter. And then I have music out on, you know, all the streaming services. I have NFTs out. You know, if you look up Black Dave on like OpenSea, for instance, I should pop up. And so you can see a lot of my work there, but I talk about a lot on Twitter. Of course, on Clubhouse, I'm Black Dave, just because I don't think Clubhouse is gonna leave us anytime soon. So I guess I throw that out there. Yeah, I think those are probably the best places to find me. I think if you're interested in what I say, go to Twitter. If you're interested in what I do, go to Instagram or my website. But I think that when you start to see what I say, you might get interested in what I do. So I say start
That's
with Twitter.
and that's how I came full circle too. So, and then the last question is, what's like the narrative that you want to project into the universe? I think you hinted about it a little bit earlier, but like if you had to give one quick hit for anyone to kind of leave this episode with that you know resonates with you or can inspire somebody, what would it be?
Um, you know, being yourself is gonna win. Like I believe that, like truly. And so I don't try to pretend to be anybody else for anybody else. And I think that that's super, super important. And be like super patient. Be as patient as you can. I know that's a Gary Vee thing, but I think it's true. Like I always tell my girlfriend, like, patience is my best quality, and she's like, you have lots of other great qualities, but obviously she's my girlfriend, she's gonna say that. But like, patience and being yourself, and you'll win being yourself, because that's my goal. Like, I think once I truly win being myself, I think then that will continue to open the doors, because Pharrell, Kanye, like, Childish Gambino, ASAP Rocky, like all the blog era rappers were themselves. Mac Miller, like Action Bronson, like, and I think, you look now, like Odd Future and Tyler the Creator and like SZA and like all these rappers now, like, they wouldn't exist without that inspiration of people being allowed to be themselves. And you can even go back further to like Missy Elliott and Timbaland, and like, even like street rappers, like if you think about like Tupac and Biggie and like Mobb Deep and Nas and stuff like that. Everyone's just being themselves, and they're winning by being themselves. And the moment that they would try to be someone else, it's a failure. Not everybody, Drake is like the ultimate copy ninja, but no one else can do that, and I don't think anybody should. And I think that I think the reason that Drake's winning is because Drake's personality is actually focused in successful business and successful like portrayal of himself, and not so much in his personality, but that he's just obsessed with success. And so people look at his music and they say stuff about his music. I'm like, this isn't Drake's just making the music that succeeds. Drake doesn't care about the music. Drake cares about success. And so just be yourself. Like, if you can be yourself, you can win. And that's what I want to leave everybody with.
That's super dope. Thank you for sharing that. With that being said, thanks for joining us on episode 37 of An Untold Narrative, featuring Dave Curry, or Black Dave, Black Dave on everything.